The Legend of the Human Warriors. Raytana stood in the grand library of her homeworld, Salora. Tall, glowing shelves curved in every direction, holding ancient scrolls and holographic tablets. Soft lights danced across smooth blue walls, and the air smelled of dust mixed with a faint metallic scent. She ran her slender fingers over the carved symbols on a thick old book. Her large violet eyes shone with curiosity. She was always hungry for knowledge, especially about legends and myths that her elders dismissed as old stories. She brushed a strand of silver hair behind one pointed ear and gently opened the book. Its title read, The Human Enigma, Myths of the Terran Warriors. Raytana's heartbeat fluttered. She had heard the rumors since she was a small child. Supposedly, there were powerful beings called humans who came from a distant star system. Many on Salora believed humans were only fictional monsters, designed to frighten young aliens into behaving. But she had never understood why the adults spoke of them with such fear. Slowly turning the pages, she found drawings of tall figures with broad shoulders, wearing thick armor and carrying strange weapons. Each page showed fierce battles, burning landscapes, and defeated alien armies. According to these old texts, the humans lived for conflict. They conquer and destroy, her people's legends said, leaving only rubble behind. Yet no one on Salora had actually seen a human. Over centuries, many concluded the stories were pure fantasy. But Raytana was not so sure. Her finger hovered over a faded illustration of a planet in flames. Small silhouettes of humans stood on a smoky ridge, their faces stern, and their eyes burning with resolve. The text beneath it warned, when the Terran warriors rise, entire worlds can fall. A slight tremble passed through Raytana. Even if it was an exaggeration, it hinted at fearsome might. She flipped the page and saw another note. Some say humans once guarded weak species from evil empires. Others say they became conquerors themselves. Raytana sighed. Her world was peaceful. Salora's leaders taught respect, unity, and diplomacy. They used technology to grow healthy crops, build graceful cities, and exchange trade with friendly planets. War was a distant memory. Salorans considered themselves civilized and gentle. So why keep these old stories of savage warriors from Earth? The more she read, the more questions she had. Was it just a cautionary tale, one meant to remind her people that violence could lurk beyond their safe borders? She leaned back, her gaze shifting toward the high arches of the library ceiling. Outside, twin suns lit the sky in a soft purple glow. She remembered the warnings from her teachers. No one has ever proven that these Terrans exist. They are illusions from the past. Focus on the present. Do not be led astray. Yet here she was, studying every word, clinging to each sentence about a species that might only be in dusty stories. Suddenly, a light beep echoed in the silent hall. Raytana glanced down at her personal comm device strapped to her wrist. A message flashed. Distress signal detected. Unidentified origin near the outer rim of our galaxy. Her heart skipped a beat. Salora rarely received distress calls, especially from outside their immediate sector. The device repeated the words in a calm, mechanical voice, but she felt a rush of excitement. Could it be? No, that was impossible. Still, her mind raced. Could there be a remote chance it was from humans? She placed the old book back on the shelf, her mind spinning with possibilities. She hurried through the library's winding corridors until she reached a large exit door. Outside, the city hummed with flying transports and glowing walkways. She hopped onto a levitating platform that led to the Spacefarers Academy, where she worked as a junior researcher. If anyone had more information about the mysterious signal, it would be the Academy's monitoring station. Along the way, she thought about how her people might respond if they discovered the signal came from humans. Would they believe it or label it a trick? Legends had warned that humans brought fear wherever they went. But the same legends also called them protectors at times. Raytana wondered which version, if any, was true. She arrived at the Academy's tall steel gates and quickly entered. Inside, the main hall was busy with scientists, pilots, and technicians. They walked across gleaming floors, carrying data pads and speaking in hushed voices. Raytana made her way to a small control room on the second floor, where her friend Seelan was studying readings on a large screen. Seelan turned, her bright green eyes wide with excitement. "Raytana, did you see the news? We picked up a weak signal from deep space. We think it might be a crashed vessel, but we're not sure which species it belongs to." Raytana forced a calm smile. "I just got the alert." "Any clues about the origin?" she asked, trying to hide her racing thoughts. Seelan shook her head. "No, the signal is partial. We can't decode it fully. The words, they sound unfamiliar. We're still running it through the translator." Raytana's heart pounded. She glanced at the lines of coded text on the screen, searching for any sign, any word that might confirm her growing suspicion. They played a fragment of the distress call. Static filled the room, then a harsh whisper. "Help us. Heavy damage. Tear." The rest was lost. Raytana's breath caught in her throat. She thought she heard the start of the word Terra in the background. Terra. Earth. Could this be an actual human message? She turned to Seelan, trying to keep her voice steady. "This might be serious. We should investigate." But worry also filled her mind. If the stories were true, the humans might be as dangerous as the old books claimed. Still, she felt a growing urgency in her chest, a need to uncover the truth. She looked at the swirling patterns of stars on the large display. Somewhere out there, a ship cried out for help. Perhaps it was just a group of stranded traders. Perhaps it was a hoax. But maybe, just maybe, these were the Terran warriors of legend. Stepping back from the monitor, she recalled the final words written in the ancient book. When faced with the unknown, even the bravest hearts tremble. Yet her fear mixed with curiosity. She could not ignore the possibility that the myths were real. Clenching her fists, she made a silent promise to herself. She would find whoever sent this message. If they were truly human warriors, then her entire world was about to change forever. First contact. Raytana felt her pulse quicken as her small scout ship left Salora's orbit. The gentle purple glow of her homeworld faded behind her, replaced by an endless sea of stars. She had always imagined space would feel vast, but the emptiness pressed on her mind like a heavy cloak. Even inside the cockpit, surrounded by blinking lights and a steady hum, she sensed the deep silence outside, and it made her heart pound. She glanced at the flickering console screen, where the distress signal repeated in rough bursts of static. It gave only fragments of words, but she never forgot the one clue that had captivated her thoughts. Terra. Every time she saw it, she thought of the ancient legends, the Terran warriors rumored to be fierce humans no one believed were real. She wondered if she was chasing a simple error in the data, or if she was about to meet creatures no one on Salora had ever encountered in the flesh. Her ship, the Star Glider, was small and swift. It wasn't built for combat, but for research and exploration. Raytana had chosen it for its speed and maneuverability, hoping she could slip in, gather information, and return to Salora without drawing unwanted attention. She was no soldier after all. She was just a junior researcher, guided by a brave, if perhaps reckless, curiosity. Outside the viewport, stars streaked by as the Star Glider engaged its faster-than-light engines. Raytana set a course for the outer rim of the galaxy, following the faint coordinates embedded in the distress call. She kept remembering the old library texts, each warning about humans. They bring fear, some said, while others insisted. They defend the helpless. She needed to know which version was true. After several hours in hyperspace, the Star Glider shuddered as it dropped to normal speed. Raytana's console beeped in alarm. A hollow voice from the ship's computer announced, "Debris field detected. Please reduce velocity." She quickly took manual control and slowed the ship. Through the viewport, she saw twisted metal pieces drifting in all directions, illuminated by a distant sun. Wreckage from a battle, perhaps. Her stomach tightened. She navigated carefully, weaving around jagged fragments that could tear through her ship's hull. A sharp flash caught her eye on the left. A large piece of a destroyed vessel tumbled slowly, bits of wire and steel trailing behind it. She switched on the scanner and frowned at the readings. There was movement within the field, something alive. She steered closer. Her heart beat so loudly, she thought she could hear it over the hum of the engines. A small craft floated near the center of the wreckage. Its hull was scorched and riddled with holes. Blue sparks flickered where the power system was obviously failing. Raytana swallowed hard. The craft didn't look like any Xalaran design she had seen before. It appeared more rugged, more angular, like a machine built for war. She activated her radio. "This is Raytana of Salora," she said, voice trembling slightly. "Do you require assistance?" Static answered her, followed by faint coughs or muttering she couldn't understand. The translator program hissed as it tried to decode the words. Finally, a broken reply emerged. "H. Help. We are under attack. Pressure failing." Raytana hesitated only a moment before she decided to dock. Guiding the star glider toward the craft's side hatch, she aligned her docking clamps. A sharp clang signaled a secure seal. She put on a lightweight mask that could filter air if the other craft's atmosphere was compromised, then carefully opened the hatch. Warm, foul-smelling air hit her first. Sparks jumped from torn cables. The corridor was dimly lit and lined with slanted metal panels. Each step she took echoed on the metal floor. She followed the sound of labored breathing until she reached a small control chamber. There, she saw them. Two humans, just like the legends described, taller and broader than Xalarans, with shorter hair and more angular features. One human wore a damaged vest, dark red with scorch marks. The other lay unconscious, leaning against a shattered console. The conscious human turned around sharply. In his hand, he gripped a strange handheld weapon. It hummed with energy, and Raytana's breath caught in her throat. She raised her open palms, trying to show she meant no harm. "I am here to help," she said, voice calm. The translator repeated her words in a halting, mechanical version of their language. The human's face was pale and slick with sweat. His free hand clutched his side, where blood stained his vest. He coughed, and the translator spat out rough sentences. "We didn't know if you were enemy." His voice was hoarse, but his eyes burned with the will to protect his injured companion. Raytana heard small moans from the other human, who seemed barely conscious. She moved slowly, stepping closer. "I'm not your enemy," she said gently. "I promise." She pointed to the unconscious human. "He needs medical help." The armed human cast his gaze toward his friend, conflict clear in his eyes. Then, with great effort, he lowered his weapon to his side. In that moment, Raytana's heart pounded with realization. These were not just images in an ancient book. They were real. And they were hurt, desperate, and afraid. The tension in the room was thick as she kneeled to check the wounded man's pulse. She felt the heat of his blood under her palm. Her training in basic first aid kicked in, though she never expected to use it on a human. She carefully applied a portable medical patch from her belt, hoping Xalaran medicine would help stabilize him. The conscious human watched her every move. She noticed the intensity in his eyes, determination mixed with raw fear. He was hit by shrapnel. The man managed. "Please, can you save him?" Raytana nodded. "I will do what I can." Her translator echoed her words, and the human's rigid posture eased slightly. She wondered if he had ever imagined this moment. An alien coming to his aid. For a second, she remembered the dire warnings from her people. "If you ever meet a Terran, run, or they will destroy you." Yet looking at these two, she saw no monsters. She saw individuals fighting to survive. Suddenly, a metallic groan resounded through the craft. A new alarm blared, and red lights flashed on the flickering control console. The wounded ship was breaking apart. They didn't have long before the entire vessel collapsed. Raitana rose to her feet, motioning for the human to follow. "We must go," she said. "My ship is stable, and I can take you somewhere safe." The man nodded, lifting his unconscious friend with great effort. Raitana rushed ahead, guiding them back through the corridor, sparks raining down from overhead wires. Just as they reached the docking hatch, the passage behind them caved in with a deafening crash. Smoke billowed, and the station lights died. Raitana held her breath, pushing forward. In the dark, only the blinking panel of her Star Glider's airlock guided them. They stumbled into the Star Glider's narrow interior. Raitana slammed the hatch shut and quickly pressurized the chamber. Now safe inside her vessel, she finally let out a breath she had been holding. A wave of relief washed over her. She turned to face the humans. Their presence felt surreal, living proof that the Terran warriors were not just myths. Yet there was no time for her to process this shocking reality. Alarms still beeped on her console, and a faint echo of the distress signal played overhead. She did not yet know why these humans were here, or who had attacked them. All she knew was that her life, and perhaps all of Salora, had just changed forever. An uneasy alliance. Raitana stood inside the cramped cockpit of the Star Glider, watching as the taller human settled his wounded companion on a small bunk in the corner. Her ship's engines hummed softly, and the overhead lights cast a faint glow across worried faces. Tension filled the narrow space. Raitana was still shaken by the truth that humans, once only myths in her world, were now right in front of her. The conscious human soldier glanced around warily. His gaze flickered across various panels, blinking monitors, and the translator device strapped to Raitana's belt. An uneasy silence stretched between them. Raitana wondered what he thought of her. A slender alien with violet eyes and silver hair, wearing a simple flight suit. Would he consider her a threat, or just a strange being from an unknown star? She kept her voice calm. "You are safe here," she said, her translator repeating the words in the human language. She pointed gently to the unconscious man. "He needs rest." She tried to keep her eyes on the wounded soldier's labored breathing, but her mind danced with questions. Why were they here? Who attacked them? The standing human nodded. His grip on his handheld weapon had eased, but he still kept it close. He pressed a button on his own wrist device, and a mechanical voice responded in harsh, broken Saloran. "We thank you for help. My name, Sergeant Karen." His accent sounded rough, but Raitana understood. She introduced herself, and the translator bridged the gap. Slowly, they began to communicate. A series of beeps broke the brief moment of calm. Raitana looked at the main control panel. Her proximity scanner flashed bright red. Something large approached the debris field they had just escaped. She frowned. "Another ship is heading this way," she announced. "We must leave soon, or they might detect us." She tried to sound confident, though her stomach twisted with fear. Kieran's jaw tightened. "Enemy," he muttered. "They tracked us." His face, already pale from blood loss, turned grim. Raitana felt a jolt of alarm. If the attackers who nearly destroyed the humans were close, she and her small vessel stood little chance in a fight. She glanced at the battered armor on Kieran's chest. It confirmed her fear. These humans were soldiers, likely used to battle. She slid into the pilot's seat and started the Star Glider's engines. "Strap in," she told Kieran. Then she guided the ship away from the floating wreckage, weaving between broken panels and twisted steel beams. Through the viewport, she caught sight of a dark silhouette looming in the distance. It was far larger than her scout ship. At that moment, she knew escape was her only option. Sparks crackled as the Star Glider surged forward. Raitana's hands shook on the controls. She was trained to explore, not to run from battle cruisers. The console beeped again. A pulse of energy flared behind them, followed by a faint tremor that shook the entire cabin. "They're firing at us," she whispered, her voice trembling. Kieran strapped himself into a seat near his injured comrade, who was still unconscious. He pressed a few buttons on his own device, likely trying to send a message or set up some defensive measure. Seeing him struggle, Raytana felt a stab of empathy. His eyes glimmered with the will to protect his friend, even in a hopeless situation. Gathering her courage, she pushed the ship to top speed. The star glider shot forward, leaving streaks of starry light behind. Another blast rocked the small craft, and alarms wailed. Raytana's heart pounded, but she forced herself to focus on the swirling patterns of hyperspace ahead. After a tense moment, she activated the jump drive. A bright flash filled the cockpit. Then everything went quiet. When they emerged from the jump, they were far from the debris field. The distant star behind them was now just a tiny glow. Raytana allowed herself a shaky sigh of relief. They had escaped. She turned to face Kieran, who was now checking the wounded man's vital signs. The man's eyes were still closed, but his breathing seemed more stable. Raytana stood and grabbed a small medical kit from a wall compartment. "Let me help," she said, gesturing toward the injured soldier. Kieran looked hesitant. The translator turned his muttered words into a jumble of half-finished sentences. "Not sure. Trust. But yes. Do it." Carefully, Raytana knelt beside the bunk and scanned the soldier with her handheld device. A soft beam of light moved over his chest, reading vital signs. Her alien technology struggled with human biology, but she could at least tell there was internal bleeding. She applied a stronger med patch, hoping it would stop the bleeding long enough for them to reach proper medical facilities. "I have limited supplies," she said. "We need a real doctor soon." Kieran dipped his head in thanks. "We appreciate your help," he managed, the mechanical voice echoing his words. He continued softly, "The ones who attacked us, they won't stop. You're in danger for saving us." Raytana swallowed. She sensed the truth in his warning. Clearly, these humans were at war with some powerful foe, and now she was dragged into their conflict. Still, she could not abandon them. Gazing at the unconscious soldier's pale face, Raytana recalled ancient library images of humans as unstoppable warriors. Yet this man looked so fragile, so mortal. Something inside her twisted at the thought of him dying here, so far from his own people. She rose and walked back to the pilot's seat. A swirl of emotions churned in her mind. Fear, curiosity, and a strange sense of responsibility. She typed new coordinates into the navigation system, pointing them toward a quiet corner of space, where Xalaran explorers sometimes stopped to rest. "There's a small outpost nearby," she said. "It's neutral territory. We can repair my ship and figure out how to treat him." Kieran nodded slowly. "You saved our lives," he said through the translator's stilted voice. "But if the enemy finds us again, they'll bring bigger ships." He paused, taking in a shaky breath. "We will fight to protect you if we must. That is our duty." Raytana's eyes widened. Despite the old stories labeling humans as conquerors, these two seemed different. She saw a soldier's honor in Kieran's face, not the brutal monster of legend. She offered a quiet nod in return. "I will do what I can to keep us safe," she said. "But I need to know more. Who is hunting you, and why?" Kieran's gaze darkened. "They call themselves the Krulax," he replied. "They want to control this sector of space. We were sent to stop them. They ambushed us, and—" he glanced at his fallen comrade. "We barely escaped." Raytana closed her eyes for a moment. The Krulax. She had heard rumors of a rising empire at the fringes of the galaxy, known for enslaving or destroying weaker civilizations. Until now, it was a distant threat, but the reality stood before her in the shape of two battered human soldiers. She realized that her peaceful life on Salora might never be the same. She opened her eyes and met Kieran's determined stare. "Then we have a common interest," she said softly, pressing the Star Glider's engines to full power. "We both want to survive." As they sped toward the neutral outpost, the mood inside the small craft remained tense. The short flight promised no real rest, only a brief break before the next challenge. Raitana knew she was caught in something far bigger than any library legend. But her instincts told her she could not turn back. The humans were real, their dangers were real, and now so was this uneasy alliance that might be the only thing keeping all of them alive. Escape and revelation. Raitana leaned forward in the Star Glider's cockpit, her eyes scanning the dusty, ring-shaped station that drifted against the darkness of space. Small lights flickered along its perimeter, and old docking platforms lay scattered around it. An enormous sign, worn and half-broken, marked it as Zeria Outpost. This was the neutral territory she had mentioned, an aging, largely forgotten stop for travelers seeking quick repairs and simple trade. She felt a pang of anxiety as she recalled Kieran's words about the Kralax. They were relentless hunters. If the Kralax tracked them here, the outpost might become a war zone. Still, the Star Glider needed repairs, and Sergeant Kieran's wounded companion, Private Wolf, needed better medical care than Raitana could provide with a handful of patches. With a sigh, she gently guided the ship toward one of the free docking bays. Behind her, Kieran adjusted Wolf's position on the bunk, making sure his friend was stable. Every now and then, the unconscious soldier gave a weak groan. Kieran's forehead creased in concern, and Raitana's heart ached for him. She never thought she could feel sympathy for humans, beings she once believed were only cruel warriors from old legends. Yet here she was, risking her safety to help them. A loud thud signaled a successful landing. Raitana shut off the main engines and turned to face Kieran. "We're here," she said softly, using her translator. She stood up and grabbed a small satchel of supplies. "Let's see if we can find a doctor willing to treat. Private Wolf," she added, glancing at the name patch on his torn uniform. Kieran gave a slight nod. "Thank you," he replied. His voice, still muffled by the translator, held a note of relief. Then he eased Wolf up so they could move him. With gentle care, he wrapped an arm around Wolf's shoulders and lifted him. Raitana led them through the Star Glider's airlock into the outpost's docking corridor. As the doors slid open, a gust of stale air hit them. This place smelled of old metal, recycled oxygen, and faint smoke from travelers who brought all manner of goods. A few blinking lights lined the walls, but large areas were cloaked in shadow. The trio emerged onto a small platform, where a bored docking attendant waved them forward with disinterest. He was a reptilian alien from a species Raitana did not recognize, wearing a simple jumpsuit. When he saw Wolf's bloody uniform, his eyes widened, but he made no comment. Zeria Outpost was known for its no-questions-asked policy. Everyone minded their own business here. They headed down a narrow hallway toward a row of neon signs advertising food, repairs, and medical services. Flickering lights spelled out Doc Fenn's clinic in 3 different languages. Raitana's translator picked up the last sign as surgery, all species. It was exactly what they needed. She pushed the door open, and a sharp chemical odor invaded her senses. Inside, a stout, fur-covered alien sat at a reception desk, tapping a pen against a data tablet. She noticed the group and quickly stood. "Need help?" she asked in a raspy voice. Kieran nodded, carefully setting Wolf on a padded exam table. Raitana explained the situation in the outpost's common language, and the receptionist hurried off to find Dr. Fenn. A moment later, an older avian alien with short, bristly feathers entered the room. He wore stained medical scrubs and had a confident, if tired, expression on his sharp features. Without wasting time, he scanned Wolf with a handheld device, then glanced at Kieran and Raitana. "Human," he muttered, switching to basic speech. "Haven't treated many of these, but I'll do my best, if you can pay." His tone was businesslike, not unkind. Raitana and Kieran exchanged uneasy looks. Raitana had limited credits for such advanced care, but she also knew Wolf would die without proper treatment. Gently, she placed her credit chip on the table and gave a slight nod. Dr. Fenn's eyes flicked across the chip. He shrugged, satisfied, and turned to prep his surgical instruments. Kieran followed the doctor, but Raytana stayed back, knowing she would just get in the way. While they worked, she stood near the door, arms crossed, mind spinning. The outpost felt oddly quiet, yet she couldn't shake the sense of being watched. She glanced through a small window and saw a cluster of rough-looking travelers passing by. Some had mechanical implants, others carried battered blasters. In a place like this, trust was scarce. Within a short time, the doctor returned to the waiting area, a tired look in his eyes. "He's stable for now," he informed them, "but he will need rest, and I can't promise a full recovery. His body is different, harder to treat with my usual meds. I've done what I can." Relief flooded Kieran's face. He opened his mouth to speak, but the translator only provided a shaky "thank you." Raytana noticed that Kieran seemed paler now, his wounds also untreated. She gently touched his arm. "You should rest too. You're injured." He drew in a long breath. "We can't rest for long," he replied in halting basic. "Krulax might find us." That name sent a chill through Raytana. She remembered how easily they had attacked the human ship. Her sense of urgency returned in full force. Still, she took Kieran aside. She guided him to a small cot in a corner of the clinic. "Let the doctor treat you, then we'll decide our next step." Kieran opened his mouth to protest, but exhaustion took over. He sank onto the cot, allowing the doctor to examine his wounds. While Dr. Fenn worked, Raytana slipped out of the clinic to explore the outpost for vital supplies. She wanted to make sure they could leave at a moment's notice if the Krulax appeared. She moved through narrow corridors filled with hustling traders and shady characters. Vendors shouted prices for everything from alien fruits to black market weapons. Neon signs blinked overhead, promising exotic pleasures or cheap repair work. She stopped at a small kiosk that sold starship parts. A tall, wiry alien with a bulbous head eyed her with suspicion. "Need something?" he rasped. Raytana scanned the shelves for a new coolant valve and hull patch kit. Her ship's systems had nearly overheated during the escape, and the hull was scratched from debris. After some haggling, she exchanged credits for the supplies, ignoring the merchant's curious questions. As she left, a cold sensation pricked the back of her neck. Someone was watching her. She looked over her shoulder and glimpsed a dark figure slip behind a crate. Her heart jumped. She ducked into a side corridor, pressing her back to the wall, trying to calm her breathing. Was this a thief looking to rob her, or something worse, like a Krulax scout? Minutes passed in tense silence. No one emerged. Raytana finally moved on, telling herself she was only being paranoid. Still, she felt far from safe. She rushed back to the clinic, anxious to see if Kieran and Wolf were okay. Inside, she found Kieran wide awake, leaning against the wall, and Wolf resting in a corner bed. She handed Kieran the repair kit for the Star Glider. "We should fix the ship quickly," she whispered, not wanting to rouse Wolf. "I have a bad feeling. If someone tracks us here." Kieran cut her off with a weary nod. "We leave soon, once Wolf can walk." His voice was grim but steady. Raytana sensed he was used to hiding pain and pushing forward. Even now, after medical treatment, he looked ready to fight. Before she could respond, the outpost overhead lights flickered, and a siren wailed. A panicked voice boomed from the speakers, repeating in multiple languages. "Unidentified ships detected. Alert. Possible hostile forces." Raytana felt her stomach twist. Kieran met her gaze. They didn't need to say the name. They both knew who had arrived. Raytana took a trembling breath. "We have to go," she said. Dr. Fenn looked alarmed, but was more concerned with protecting his clinic. Kieran moved to Wolf, helping him stand. Though still weak, Wolf managed to lean on Kieran's shoulder. The trio hurried out of the clinic, scanning the corridors for danger. They had come here looking for a moment of peace, a chance to heal and plan. But the Krulax were merciless. Now, with an attack looming, Raytana realized there was no more hiding. The only choice was to escape once again, if they could. And in that moment, as red emergency lights flashed across the station's walls, she remembered the library's words about human warriors. Perhaps the legends had been wrong about many things, but one line echoed in her mind: when the Terran warriors rise, entire worlds can fall. With the Kraleks closing in, she feared those words might soon become all too real. They broke into a run, heading for the star glider. For better or worse, their secrets and doubts would have to wait. Survival demanded their full attention now. Rallying allies. Raytana guided the star glider through the swirling purple skies of her home planet, Salora. The ship trembled slightly on re-entry, its hull still scared from encounters with debris and enemy fire. Beside her, Sergeant Karen tightened his grip on the co-pilot's seat, alert and silent. Private Wolf, still healing, rested in a passenger chair behind them, occasionally wincing from the lingering pain of his injuries. Several days had passed since they fled Zeria outpost. The Kraleks attack had forced them to jump through multiple star routes, barely evading pursuit. Now, with supplies running low and Wolf's condition delicate, returning to Salora felt like their only chance. Raytana was frightened. Her peaceful planet had not faced a real threat in generations, and she was bringing 2 human soldiers, beings most of her people believed were myths. She had no idea how they would react. As the ship descended, the familiar sight of elegant crystal spires and glowing waterways came into view. Raytana exhaled, relieved to see the place she called home. Yet fear coiled in her stomach. Would her leaders trust her story about the Kraleks and the humans? She glanced at Kieran, whose eyes scanned the horizon with caution. He had insisted on landing discreetly. The star glider touched down on an empty stretch of grassland just outside the main city. Tall purple grasses waved in a gentle breeze. Raytana powered down the engines. "We're here," she said softly, using the translator so Karen could understand. "I need to speak with my people's council of elders. If anyone can help us, it's them." Karen looked uneasy. "You are sure they will not arrest us?" he asked, choosing his words carefully. Wolf, standing behind him, managed a strained smile. "If they do," he murmured, "I hope their prisons are comfortable." It was a small joke, but it eased the tension. Raytana forced a smile in return. They opened the hatch, letting in fresh, cool air. The sunlight on Salora had a soft lavender hue, casting gentle shadows across the land. Raytana helped Wolf walk. Though he was on the mend, he still needed support. Kieran stayed close, one hand never far from his sidearm. The small group approached a sleek hover vehicle that Raytana had arranged through a discreet friend. Nobody questioned her, though the driver's wide-eyed stare at the humans spoke volumes. Within minutes, they arrived at the towering entrance to Salora's central city. Wide roads of shimmering stone led to elegant buildings shaped like spirals of white and silver. Bridges arched over canals filled with glowing fish that darted like living jewels. Everything looked tranquil, but Raytana couldn't forget the danger looming among the stars. They reached the council hall, a vast chamber supported by columns of polished quartz. Sunlight filtered through the high curved roof, illuminating the mosaic floor below. Raytana guided the humans inside, and almost immediately, shocked whispers spread among the gathered citizens. Their eyes went round at the sight of these tall, broad-shouldered strangers. Some families hurried their children away, while others simply stood frozen, unsure whether to feel fear or awe. At the far end of the hall, the council of elders sat on raised seats. Each elder wore flowing robes of soft colors, symbols of wisdom and peace. Their expressions were stern, and Raytana's heart pounded. She led Kieran and Wolf forward, clearing her throat. "Honored elders," she began, bowing respectfully. "I have returned from beyond the outer rim. I bring urgent news." A tall elder with shimmering green skin, Elder Meron, spoke first. "Child, you have humans with you." The final word dropped like a stone in the silent hall. "Explain yourself. We thought these beings were only legends, dangerous warriors who bring war wherever they go." Kieran stood straight, though Raytana noticed the tension in his posture. He waited for Raytana to use her translator. Choosing her words carefully, she said, "These men are not here to harm us. They were attacked by a hostile force known as the Kralax, the same Kralax who threaten peaceful worlds everywhere. They nearly killed Kieran and Wolf. We have evidence of the Kralax's growing power." Another elder, a woman with elaborate markings on her forehead, folded her arms. "Even if this threat is real, why bring them here? Humans are rumored to be fierce fighters, but do we want their conflict on our doorstep?" Raytana swallowed hard. She turned to Kieran, who met her eyes. She repeated the elder's words through the translator. His face grew determined. In a firm voice, he said, "We did not choose this war. The Kralax want to dominate all species. We humans are only one target among many. If your people think they are safe simply because they hide, they are mistaken." Raytana's translator echoed his words in stilted Saloran. A wave of alarmed murmurs swept through the hall. The mention of war clashed painfully with Salora's centuries-long peace. Elder Meron frowned. "You ask us to fight. We have not used our weapons in decades. Conflict is not our way." Kieran dipped his head in respect, but his voice was unwavering. "We do not want your people to become victims of the Kralax. We're not here to drag you into a pointless battle. But if the Kralax come, they will show no mercy, whether you fight or not. They attacked us without warning and destroyed our fleet. They will do the same to you." Elder Meron was silent, clearly troubled. Another elder, Elder Trian, spoke gently. "Raytana, you have brought us an impossible choice. Our records of humans call them conquerors, but these men seem different. Are you certain we can trust them?" Raytana's voice shook with emotion. "I have seen them risk their lives to protect each other and to protect me. If we turn them away, we lose valuable allies who know how to resist the Kralax. And," she paused, "I believe they can teach us how to defend ourselves." The crowd stirred. Some nodded, seeing reason in her words. Others scowled or whispered that humans could not be trusted. Elder Meron finally raised his hand, calling for silence. "This threat calls for serious debate. Our planet cherishes peace, but we cannot ignore the possibility of danger on our doorstep." He looked at Kieran and Wolf with guarded respect. "If you speak true, if these Kralax mean to conquer us, we must be prepared." With that, the elders retreated into a quiet discussion, leaving Raytana, Kieran, and Wolf standing amid the watchful eyes of the public. The minutes dragged on, and tension built in Raytana's chest. She knew time was short. Any day now, the Kralax could launch an attack on Salora or any nearby world. Finally, Elder Meron returned. "The Council has decided that we cannot remain idle. We will mobilize what defense forces we have, even if they are small. We will also reach out to neighboring systems for support." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "And we will consider the humans as allies for now. We wish to hear more of their knowledge and experiences with the Kralax." A mixture of relief and worry flooded Raytana. At least they were not throwing Kieran and Wolf into a cell. But the path ahead was steep. Her people, long untested by war, would need guidance. Kieran stepped forward, despite his injuries. He bowed his head, a gesture of respect he must have learned from watching Salorans. "We will do all we can to help," he said. "Thank you for trusting us." As the council dismissed them, citizens parted to make way. Some looked on with cautious interest, others with fear. Raytana led the humans back outside, where the lavender sun shone on the city streets. She took a shaky breath. They had taken the first step. An alliance, however uneasy, now existed between Salora and these two human warriors. She glanced at Kieran, who was silent, clearly deep in thought about what lay ahead. Wolf limped beside him, still wincing from time to time. Their survival depended on uniting forces against the Kralax, and Salora was only the beginning. They would need more allies, more ships, more training. Everything had changed in the span of a few days. At least now, Raytana was not alone in her knowledge. The elders had heard her warning, and they did not dismiss it. The question was whether her peaceful world could truly stand against a ruthless empire. She could only hope that the humans' expertise and the bravery within her own people would be enough. As they walked through the swirling grasslands toward the temporary quarters the council provided, Raytana felt both relief and fear. They had taken a step toward rallying allies, but the real battle was just beginning. The final battle. Raytana stood on a raised platform in Salora's newly converted command center, her heart pounding. All around her, Saloran technicians hurried between panels of glowing screens, calling out status reports in tense voices. In the center of the room, a large holographic display showed the star system. Dozens of green blips, representing the defenders, converged near the planet's orbit. Farther out, red triangles formed a broad line. The Krulax fleet. She remembered how only weeks ago, Salora was a place of calm and beauty, dedicated to art, science, and peaceful living. Now the once peaceful citizens prepared for war. Elder Marin stood beside her, wearing simple robes but with a determined expression. He tapped a control to open the communications channel. All forces, came Marin's voice over the loudspeakers. The Krulax approach our outer defenses. Hold the line. May our unity protect us. Raytana exhaled, feeling the weight of those words. She glanced at Sergeant Kirin, who stood nearby in borrowed Saloran armor. The armor did not fit him perfectly, but it was better than nothing. Next to him was Private Wolf, looking pale but resolute. A group of Saloran pilots, armed with newly mounted weapons, waited for instructions. Their faces showed a mix of fear and resolve. They had spent countless hours training with the humans, learning basic combat tactics, something foreign to their peaceful way of life. Kirin turned to Raytana. "Your people have come far," he said quietly, his voice relayed through a smaller translator pinned to his shoulder. "They still have a chance, if we work together." Raytana nodded. She had seen how the human strategies helped shape Salora's defense. They taught them about formation flying, shield management, and how to outmaneuver larger enemy ships. It was a crash course in warfare, but it had to be enough. A flurry of alarms erupted across the command center. Raytana watched as the hologram changed, showing clusters of the Krulax fleet moving in fast. Elder Marin's face hardened. "They're attacking our satellite defenses," he said grimly. "We must launch our intercept ships now." Within minutes, wave after wave of Saloran fighters rose from the planet's surface, guided by human advisement. Raytana, Kirin, and Wolf headed for the star glider, which had been upgraded with heavier shields and a small plasma cannon. As they ran through the corridors leading to the hangar, Raytana's stomach twisted with dread. She had never fought in a battle of this scale. The library tales of war felt distant and unreal compared to the raw panic surging through her veins now. They reached the star glider and strapped in. Kirin took the co-pilot seat to manage weapons, while Wolf sat behind them, monitoring scanners. Raytana powered up the engines. The familiar hum of the starship vibrated around them, mixed with new, deeper rumbles from the added systems. "Let's do this," she whispered. The hangar doors slid open, revealing a sky filled with Saloran craft lifting off. She guided the star glider into the air, and soon they soared past the city's sparkling spires. Above them, the sky faded into space, where distant pinpricks of light signaled the firefight already unfolding. As they left the atmosphere, the radio crackled with frantic chatter. "Shield at 70%, requesting backup. Enemy fighters incoming, bearing 450. We've lost contact with Satellite Post 1. Raytana's heart thundered. Every story she had read about war came flooding back. But this was no legend. This was real. In the distance, large Krulax warships glinted under the purple sun. They fired bright bolts of energy at the Saloran defense line. Through the viewport, Raytana could see small fighters darting around the massive enemy vessels, desperate to find weak points. Kieran focused on the scanner. There, he said, pointing to a small gap in the Kralax formation. They've left an opening near their flagship. If we can slip through, we might disable its shield generator. Raytana glanced at Wolf, who nodded, though he looked pale. We'll never get a better chance, he said. We cut the head off the snake. The rest may flee. Summoning all her courage, Raytana accelerated the star glider. Laser blasts streaked past them, lighting up the blackness of space. The ship shook as it squeezed through the chaos. Kieran fired back when a Kralax fighter crossed their path. One bright shot from the plasma cannon ripped through the enemy's hull, causing it to spiral away. Raytana felt a tremor of shock. She had never destroyed another vessel before. Her hands shook on the controls, but she pressed on. As they neared the hulking Kralax flagship, it loomed like a giant black fortress in orbit. Defensive turrets peppered any incoming craft with furious energy beams. We'll be blasted to pieces if we don't do something, Wolf muttered. An idea struck Kieran. We can mask our approach. The Zalaran fighters can distract their turrets, while we slip in below the main sensor array. He switched channels to speak with Zalaran flight leaders. Over the comms, he guided them to stage a feint on the opposite side of the flagship. It was a risk. Several Zalaran ships might not survive, but they had little choice. Moments later, the Zalaran pilot swooped in, drawing the flagship's fire. Turrets turned, spitting bright bolts of destruction at the new targets. Smoke and sparks danced across the void as some Zalaran crafts took heavy damage. Raytana swallowed hard. She knew they were sacrificing themselves to give her group a shot at ending this battle. Seizing the moment, she dove the star glider beneath the flagship's massive hull. Kieran scanned for the shield generator. There, he barked. That panel is the power junction. Raytana saw an array of glowing conduits on the underside of the ship. If they could destroy it, the flagship's shields would drop. Kieran primed the plasma cannon. Steady, steady. Then he fired. A powerful blast struck the conduits, causing a cascade of sparks and fire. Seconds later, the shield generator erupted in a fierce explosion that rocked the flagship, sending shockwaves through space. Yes, Wolf cheered, gripping the seat to keep from being thrown off balance. But the victory was short-lived. The flagship's gun batteries swiveled in their direction, now aware of the star glider's presence. A new wave of energy blasts came roaring toward them. Brace! Raytana shouted. She zigzagged the star glider, narrowly avoiding lethal beams. The hull groaned, lights flickered, but they managed to dodge the worst of it. Meanwhile, the Zalaran forces pressed their advantage. With the flagship's shields down, missiles and laser cannons struck its armored hull. Fire and debris lit up the darkness. Still, the Kralax fought back fiercely. Dozens of smaller enemy fighters poured from launch bays, swarming Zalaran ships. Raytana gritted her teeth as she banked sharply, weaving between fragments of wreckage. Each breath she took felt like fire in her lungs. Then, just when she thought the battle might never end, the flagship's engines flickered and died. A massive explosion tore through its stern, sending the vessel into a slow, spiraling retreat. The smaller Kralax ships paused, almost as though shocked by their leader's downfall. One by one, they began to pull back. "Look at that," Wolf gasped, pointing at the main display. The Kralax forces were moving away from Salora, their formation shattered. Kieran leaned forward, hardly believing it. "They're retreating," he said, his voice thick with relief. Raytana slumped in her seat, tears stinging her eyes. It was over for now. The final battle had left wreckage and heartbreak behind. But the Kralax armada was broken, at least in this sector. Salora's ships began to regroup, picking up survivors and tending to the wounded. In the cockpit, the three allies sat in exhausted silence for a moment. Raytana listened to the frantic but victorious chatter over the comms. She thought of all the Zalaran pilots who risked their lives and the ancient myths that had once made humans out to be pure terrors. Kieran and Wolf were living proof that humans could be something else entirely, courageous friends who stood with them against a powerful foe. As the battered star glider turned back towards Salvora, Raytana finally let a shaky smile spread across her face. The final battle might have ended in their favor, but the consequences of this war, and the truth of the Terran myths, would echo throughout the galaxy for a long time to come. Shattered myths, new reality. Raytana stood on the gentle slope outside her city, gazing at the evening sky. It was painted with soft lavender hues, and the twin suns dipped slowly behind the horizon, casting long shadows across the land. Only a few days had passed since the final battle with the Krulax, yet her world felt changed forever. She could still see fragments of debris in high orbit, glittering like broken stars, remnants of the fierce conflict. Behind her, makeshift hospitals and relief stations had sprung up across Solora's capital. Volunteers tended to the wounded, both Salaran and human. The air in the city carried a mix of relief and sorrow. Relief at the Krulax retreat, sorrow for the friends and family lost in the fight. As Raytana closed her eyes, she remembered the swirling chaos of laser fire, the roar of exploding starships, and the desperate feeling that each second might be her last. But they had survived. And though her people had suffered, they had also discovered a strength they never knew they possessed. A light footstep crunched behind her. She turned to see Sergeant Kieran approaching. He wore a simple tunic provided by the Saloran Council. Much of his former armor was damaged in the battle. His gaze flickered to the dimming sky. "They said you might be here," he said, his voice translated by a smaller device pinned to his collar. "The council is gathering soon." Raytana nodded. "Yes, I know," she replied softly. "I needed a moment to think." She cast her eyes back toward the horizon. To think about all that's happened and what comes next. Kieran shifted, crossing his arms. A small smile touched his lips, though his eyes were heavy with fatigue. "I understand," he said. "We humans fight so many battles. Sometimes it's easy to forget how precious peace is." Raytana studied him quietly. The myths from her childhood once depicted humans as ruthless conquerors, but after everything she had seen, that image no longer fit. Kieran had risked his life for her people. Wolf, who was still recovering in a medical ward, had done the same. They were brave, determined, and flawed, just as any living species could be. "Come," Kieran added after a pause, extending his hand. "The council is waiting." They walked through the city streets. Thick vines covered damaged buildings where laser fire had scorched their gleaming exteriors. Here and there, Salaran engineers worked to repair the infrastructure, while children peeked out from behind half-rebuilt walls. Some still looked at Kieran in awe. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and very much alive, disproving the old belief that humans were mere fiction. At the council hall, large banners hung in remembrance of the fallen. A hush lingered among the citizens who had gathered, forming a wide circle around the building. Raytana and Kieran entered to find Elder Meron, Elder Trian, and the other elders standing at the center. Wolf sat nearby on a bench, his bandaged arm resting in a sling. He looked tired but managed a respectful nod when he saw them. Elder Meron lifted a hand, signaling for the hall to quiet. His green skin and wise expression seemed more somber than ever before. "We have called this assembly to honor our defenders," he said, voice echoing, "but also to decide our next steps. Our planet has suffered, yet we prevailed with the help of allies we once feared were only legends." A wave of whispers rippled through the room. Some eyes darted toward Kieran, others fixed on Raytana. She felt her cheeks grow warm. The memory of how she first met the humans, rescuing them from a half-ruined ship, still felt surreal. She tried to stand tall. Elder Meron continued, "With the Krulax fleet in retreat, many of us ask, are the humans truly gone from our world now, or shall we forge a lasting bond?" Kieran cleared his throat, stepping forward. "We never intended to stay here and impose our ways. But the war against the Krulax is not over. They will regroup and seek new targets. If your people want to be safe, you must not hide from the galaxy." We can help you make alliances with other worlds threatened by the Krelax. We can stand together." Elder Trian nodded slowly. "We see wisdom in your words. This battle woke us from a long slumber of complacency. We now know we cannot rely on old myths and isolation to protect us. Salora must reach out to others, to find mutual defense and friendship." A murmur of agreement passed among the elders. Raytana felt her heart lighten. It was still strange hearing her leaders speak so openly about forging defensive pacts. Only weeks ago, the very thought would have caused alarm. But times had changed. Elder Meron turned to Raytana, his gaze warm. "Child, you have acted with great courage and compassion. You discovered the humans and showed us a path forward. The Council thanks you. We wish to hear your voice in this matter." Her pulse quickened. She swallowed, glancing at Kirin, who gave her an encouraging nod. Gathering her courage, she addressed the assembly. "Honored elders and fellow citizens, I never imagined I would be part of a war. But I also never imagined I would meet humans, real humans, who would risk their lives for me and for Xalora. Our old legends told only one part of the story. We have seen another side, that they can be allies who stand with us against cruelty. If we choose to remain alone, the Krelax or some other threat could return. We must look beyond our world and learn from others, just as they can learn from us." A thoughtful silence followed. Then, Elder Meron inclined his head. "We agree. Let us formally ally with the humans, and let us become part of a broader effort to preserve peace in this sector. We will share knowledge and resources, and in turn, they will help us become strong enough to face new challenges." Applause rose from the gathering. The mood in the hall shifted from solemn to hopeful. Wolf gave a small cheer from his bench, though he winced as the movement pulled at his healing wounds. Kirin breathed a sigh of relief, a half-smile crossing his face. Elder Trian stepped down from his seat, turning to Raytana. "And you, child? Will you stay on Salora, or will you travel with our new allies to help secure these bonds?" Raytana's breath caught in her throat. She had dreamed all her life of exploring distant stars, but she never expected the path to unfold like this. Looking at Kirin, she saw a silent understanding in his gaze. He knew the stars could call to anyone, just as they had called him to serve in distant battles. Slowly, Raytana nodded. "I want to help. I've seen what is out there, and how we can make a difference if we stand together. I will go, if the Council and the humans allow it. And when the time is right, I will return to share what I've learned." Elder Meron smiled. "We would be honored to have you serve as our envoy, our bridge to other worlds." Kirin reached out and clasped her shoulder gently. "Then it's settled," he said, warmth in his eyes. "We'll face the galaxy together." Later that evening, Raytana found herself back on the same grassy slope. The sun had set, revealing a sky filled with countless stars. Far above, damaged satellites and broken ships drifted in silent testimony to the battle they had endured. Tomorrow, she would board a human vessel, whatever Kirin and Wolf had left for interstellar travel, and embark on a journey she had never imagined in her boldest dreams. Her silver hair shifted in the night breeze as she gazed upward, feeling both excitement and a lingering sorrow for those who had fallen. But beneath it all, she sensed the promise of a new reality. The myths of Terran warriors had been shattered. In their place stood real human allies, flawed and brave, offering their hand in friendship. Quietly, Raytana whispered a farewell to her world, knowing she would carry the spirit of Salora with her, no matter how far she traveled. With a final look at the city lights twinkling below, she turned and headed toward the landing zone, where Kirin and Wolf waited under the starlight. Together, they would face whatever lay beyond. And in that shared journey, they would forge a story no dusty library text could ever contain. A story of unity, discovery, and hope for all who longed for peace among the stars.